We've got your son, Voss. Give us $1 million or he dies. Imagine hearing those exact words. You're just sitting there in a room, the tape recorder clicks on, and a renowned Harvard Law School professor literally leans right across the table and delivers this incredibly terrifying threat. So I want to put you directly in the hot seat for a second. What would you do? How do you even begin to respond to a literal life or death demand from someone who holds all the cards? Or, well, at least someone who thinks they do. Do you try to argue? Do you beg? Do you try the classic compromise and offer them, say, $500,000? Welcome to this explainer. Today, our mission is pretty simple, but absolutely crucial. We are going to uncover the psychological secrets of high-stakes negotiations by digging into the groundbreaking concepts from Never Split the Difference. We're going to break down exactly how to navigate these ridiculously tense situations, and more importantly, how you can use these exact same strategies in your own everyday life. Let me introduce you to the man behind the method, Chris Voss. For over 2 decades, this guy was with the FBI, eventually climbing the ranks to become their lead international kidnapping negotiator. We are talking about someone who regularly went toe-to-toe with terrorists, bank robbers, and mercenaries across the Middle East and the Philippines. But honestly, the most fascinating part? The skills he used to save lives against hardened criminals are the exact same tools you can use to negotiate a better salary, buy a new car, or, even just get your stubborn kids to go to bed. Section 1. The Harvard Negotiation Showdown. Let's look at a legendary 2006 clash in the hallowed halls of Harvard University. So, Voss, who was a former Kansas City beat cop turned FBI agent, finds himself sitting across from Robert Mnookin, the director of the Harvard Negotiation Research Project, and Gabriella Blum, an international negotiation specialist. And Voss admitted he was pretty intimidated. I mean, these were the absolute heavyweights of the academic negotiation world. They had the fancy degrees, a lifetime of theory, and they had purposely ambushed him with this mock kidnapping scenario just to see what the quote-unquote FBI meathead could possibly teach them. When Mnookin aggressively demanded the $1 million or the son's life, Voss didn't panic, not at all. He just gave this long, slow stare, smiled a bit, and asked one simple question. How am I supposed to do that? And this brilliantly illustrates the power of what Voss calls a calibrated question. It completely flustered the Harvard geniuses. Why? Well, because instead of directly responding to the threat, Voss shifted the entire logistical burden of solving the problem right back onto the kidnapper. It gave Mnookin the illusion of control, but in reality, it constrained him entirely. Section 2. Heart versus mind. Why did that simple question break down decades of Harvard training? It really comes down to the battle between the heart and the mind. The crucial thing here is understanding a psychological framework developed by Daniel Kahneman. Basically, humanity operates on 2 systems of thought. System 1 is our animal mind. It's fast, instinctive, and deeply, deeply emotional. System 2, on the other hand, is slow, deliberative, and logical. Now, for a long time, academia treated negotiation as a purely System 2 thing, a rational mathematical process. But Kahneman proved that our emotional System 1 actually guides and steers our rational System 2. Simply put, if you don't know how to influence that emotional, animalistic brain, your logic doesn't stand a chance. And man, the SBI learned this the hard way. For years, the gold standard of negotiation was this rational problem-solving book called Getting to Yes. But the huge flaw of assuming everyone is a rational actor became tragically apparent during the disastrous sieges at Waco and Ruby Ridge. You just cannot use rational, cooperative problem-solving to find a neat little win-win with a guy who literally thinks he's the Messiah. Hostage takers aren't rational actors. They are emotionally driven, totally unpredictable human beings in crisis. Section 3. Introducing tactical empathy. This realization forced a massive paradigm shift within the FBI in the 1990s. They moved completely away from math and rigid logic and leaned heavily into deep psychology and counseling. Okay, let's dive into this, because this brings us to the cornerstone of everything Voss teaches, tactical empathy. It is literally listening as a martial art. It's balancing your emotional intelligence with assertive influence to gain actual access to the mind of another person. See, listening is not a passive activity, it's the most active thing you can do. By listening intensely, you demonstrate empathy and make the other side feel safe. It is the absolute cheapest, yet without a doubt, the most effective concession you can make in any negotiation. Section 4. The Brooklyn Bank Standoff. To really see this toolkit in action, we have to travel to the streets of Brooklyn in the autumn of 1993. This was Voss's first feet-to-the-fire hostage job. Let's walk through this timeline together. At 8:30 a.m., masked robbers storm a Chase Manhattan bank, taking the tellers and a security guard hostage. By 10:30 a.m., the FBI and NYPD are on the scene, and the initial work from the commanders was super optimistic. They were like, cookie cutter, by the book, they want to surrender. But, as you see by 1:30 p.m., negotiations had stalled entirely. Every single assumption the FBI started with turned out to be completely dead wrong. This brilliantly illustrates what happens when you go in with blind assumptions. The lead robber was essentially running his own counterintelligence operation. He was throwing up these weird smoke screens, constantly claiming that other people were actually in charge, and he'd just unpredictably hang up the phone. It was absolute chaos. What the FBI didn't know yet was the massive information disconnect happening inside. The lead robber's own accomplices didn't even know they were going to rob a bank that day. They thought they were just going to burglarize an ATM. They were basically hostages too. Section 5. Your Negotiation Toolkit. With the situation stalling and the commanders getting visibly embarrassed, Voss had to pivot. He had to deploy specific, actionable tools to break this stalemate. And these are the exact same tools you can use. Tool number 1 is a real game changer. It's called the Late Night FM DJ voice. Your voice is your most powerful tool, right? You can use it to reach into someone's brain and flip an emotional switch. When you slow your delivery down, speak deeply and softly, and use a downward inflection, you trigger an involuntary neurological switch in the other person. A downward inflection says, I'm in control, everything is okay. It just radiates this absolute calm and reason. So Voss used this exact voice to abruptly take over the phone line and confront the lead bank robber, a guy they had just identified as Chris Watts. With that deep, calm, downward inflecting DJ voice, Voss simply said, Joe's gone, you're talking to me now. Notice, it wasn't a question, it was a firm statement of control, and it completely rattled Watts' confidence. He was no longer anonymous, and the dynamic had instantly, fundamentally shifted. This builds perfectly into our second tool, mirroring. This is honestly the closest thing the FBI has to a Jedi mind trick. Mirroring is based on a profound biological principle. Humans fear what is different, and we are naturally drawn to what is similar. It's an unconscious imitation that triggers a biological bonding instinct. When you mirror someone, you are insinuating similarity. That builds immediate trust and effortlessly encourages the other person to elaborate and just keep talking. But here's the best part. In the context of a negotiation, mirroring is almost laughably simple. It doesn't mean awkwardly copying their body language. It literally just means repeating the last 3 words or the critical 1 to 3 words of what someone has just said. That's it. It is a remarkably simple yet uncannily effective way to get your counterpart to open up. And the results at that Brooklyn bank were undeniable. By combining the DJ voice and mirroring, Voss got the totally flustered lead robber to just start vomiting information, accidentally revealing his hidden getaway vehicle and the presence of his accomplice. Eventually, that accomplice, a terrified guy named Bobby who, remember, had been tricked into the robbery, got on the phone. Because Voss established a calm, empathetic environment, Bobby ended up trusting him, walked right out the front doors of the bank, and surrendered peacefully. The stalemate was finally broken. So what you should really take away from all of this is that you do not need to be facing down an armed bank robber to use these tools. Life is negotiation. Our days are just filled with interactions that boil down to a simple, animalistic urge. I want you to lower the price of this car. I want a 10% raise. I want you to go to sleep at 9 p.m. Tactical empathy, the late-night FM DJ voice, calibrated questions, and mirroring. These aren't just FBI tactics. They are the everyday keys to safely and effectively resolving conflicts and getting what you actually want out of life. We've seen exactly how these psychological secrets can disarm brilliant Harvard professors and diffuse literal hostage standoffs. The power is now completely in your hands. So, I leave you with this final thought. Armed with tactical empathy and the Jedi mind trick of mirroring, what are you going to ask for in your next negotiation?